Hello, I'm David Roper, and here we are right in the middle of Manchester. In fact, we're just on the edge of the Trafford Park Industrial Estate, and what we're going to be doing is a little bit of caster fishing. But just let me tell you a little bit about where we are. In fact, if you just look up that way, the giant factory is the Kellogg's Cornflakes Factory, so at least you now know where they're made. We're going to be fishing just a little bit down here before where there's a junction, in fact. Now, if you go left up there, up the arm, a couple of miles and you come to Manchester United's football ground. And I've heard the fishing is better than the football at the moment. So anyway, with no more to do, let's go and get on with it. This bit I've just walked through, you know, it used to be nothing more than a tip a year or two ago, and now, as you can see, it's quite nicely landscaped. British Waterways, in conjunction with the local councils, of course, are doing some sterling work at the minute on behalf of all of us, really. Anyhow, let's have a look at the canal. A peg here in particular, as you can see, there's a tree going into the water, and I quite fancy that really today. But in fact, I'm going to go about 40 metres down, where I did in fact win a pole match in 1986. So let's see how it goes. Actually, this peg has a little bit of history as far as I'm concerned. In 1986, I won the Silstar Pole Championships from here. Man Utd, that was a nice warm July day, and now we're in the middle of winter. That day, I had nearly £10 of bream. Well, today I wouldn't expect any bream, to be quite honest with you, but we might just get a roach or two and maybe a few perch. So let's get tattled up. Right, we're tattled up now. You wouldn't believe it, while I've been tattling up, it's hailstoned, it's rained, it's done just about everything. I was thinking how unlucky to cop for a day like this. But here we go, the sun's out again, and hopefully we're going to catch a few fish. So, can I get on with showing you the first rig that I'm going to use? Right, let's have a look at this first rig. It is in fact 4 metres to hand. It's a Silstar pole, as a matter of interest. It's a prototype, and it's working that well for me at the moment. I doubt if I'm going to swap it. So let's start at this end. Got to start at one end or the other, haven't we? Now, most people, when you start talking about lines to hand, they're talking about flick tips. Now, on this particular canal, I always use elastic, and there's a good reason for that. It's simple. There's some big fish in here. There's perch up to £1, even bigger than that, and certainly a roach of a similar size. Now, on a flick tip, when you're using light lines such as 8 and 12 ounce, I wouldn't be very confident in landing those fish. So I always use an elastic. It is just an insurance policy, really. So, as we come down and we look at the float, it is in fact a waggler. Now, the float is made of peacock. At this end here, we have a needle, and at the other end a bristle. It's amazing, actually, just how much shot this float takes for its size. You'll also notice it's locked with 1 or 2 small shot round here, round the base of the float. And as we move down, you will also notice that there are stile leads. Now, I use stiles for a good reason. You can in fact move stiles up and down, no problems at all, whereas with round shot, I'm sure you've all realised, they do tend to drop off now and again. Like I say, stiles generally will stay there for you. As we move down, you'll notice, as I was saying, that these stiles, should we say, they're rather more concentrated at the top, and that is to give this float stability. In fact, what it does, that effectively makes that little float sort of that long when it's in the water because of the closeness of those shots. As we move down, you'll notice that the styles, although the same size for the time being, are more spaced out. Now we're starting about talking fishing on the drop for these big fish that we're hoping to catch. So we come down the rig as we do, and you'll notice also that as we begin to finish off, the styles are starting to get smaller, and eventually we're finishing off with two very, very, very tiny ones. And also you'll notice quite a drop to the hook, something like 15 inches. This is in fact to give this bait a natural presentation that is very, very, very necessary to fool these bigger fish, which is hopefully what we're going to catch. The hook length is 8 ounce, and the hook is a 26's Drennan carbon caster, and I've had no problems with those at all over the years. So anyway, that's that rig. So let's put this one down and have a look at the other rig. Right, let's have a look at the second rig. This in fact is going to be our main attack today. It's going to involve caster as bait, and as you can see it's a short line pole rig. We're going to be fishing it about 11 metres out, which is something like 2/3 the way of across the canal. So let's have a look at it. Once again it involves elastic, but slightly heavier than the last one. This is a number 4, as the last one was a number 3, and I'll tell you why later. Moving down to the float. Now that is just an ordinary top and bottom wire stem bristle float which can be bought in any tattle shop. It is in fact a 4x12, and I would imagine in the 4.5, 5 foot of water that we're going to encounter here, it'll work perfectly well. Different again, we have a bulk shot. That's because of the depth. If the canal was say only 2 or 3 foot deep, I'd probably have light shots strung out as before. But on this occasion, as I say, it's slightly deeper. I much prefer some bulk, something like 2/3 of the way down. Moving on, we just have one little drop shot, which is in fact a number 10, there. Now the hook length is the same as before, it's 8 ounce. The hook is different. The hook is a size 22's, if I can just show you. There we go, a size 22's, once again a carbon caster. Now I was saying before I was using heavier elastic. The reason is I'm using a bigger hook. I wouldn't have a lot of faith in setting a 22's hook with a number 3's elastic. So we use a number 4's elastic, a 22's hook, and hopefully we'll catch what we hook. Right, that's the rig sorted out. Let me just mention something before we go any further actually. Pole fishing is my favourite aspect of the sport, no doubt about it. One thing we must all be careful of, and that is the electric wires that sometimes pass above us. Most match organisers these days recognise the fact and they leave them out. But always be on your guard, and I have heard in fact that the NFA in conjunction with Swan Vesta have made a brand new sign that you just can't miss. So keep your eyes open for it and let's be safe. Right then, let's have a look at the bait, should we? Right, the first thing we're going to look at are the jokers. Nothing particularly special, I'm sure you've all seen jokers before. In fact, I will show you some. And there we are, jokers, lovely and fresh, probably scraped sometime yesterday afternoon, looking absolutely marvellous. Now these do differ slightly from some people's jokers that I've seen. You'll notice that they've still got all the bits of grass and all the different things that go through the riddle are still there. I don't bother riddling mine through again and again and again. Every time you riddle them through, you lose some. And there's also another good reason. There's no additives in there, there's no clay, there's nothing. I can quite simply give it a squeeze and make a ball. I can put that across the canal if I like. That's far better than the way some people do it. As I was saying before, if they're too clean, you can't make a ball out of them, you can't feed them. It's just common sense really. So, let's have a look at the bloodworm, should we? Right, bloodworm. I will show you them. Beautiful looking things. In fact, these are quite big ones actually. Should catch some fish on these. Now once again, I do it differently than a lot of people. I keep mine in water. If I was using rabbits on the hook, I wouldn't keep them in water, I'd have them on dry land because that's where they'd want to be, that is where they live. bloodworm live in water, keep them in water. It's what they want, and believe me, it keeps them a lot better than having them in black soot or peat or whatever else that people generally put them in. So I hope you've learnt something there, actually. Right, let's have a look at the casters, which are going to be the main bait today. No secrets here at all. Very, very fresh. I wouldn't have them any other way. Some people seem to get away with them a week old, but I'm afraid I can't. Now what I do in fact here is this. For on the hook I want floaters. And you buy your casters from the shop and you're always going to get some floaters on the top. I mean, looking at those there's probably 40 or 50 that are definitely floating. And more important, they are the same colour. If you leave them to go off and float naturally without having them in water sort of thing, they will darken up. I want to use casters that float, that are the same colour as the ones that I'm feeding. This is how I do it. Now those, the ones that came off, are the floaters. That's my hook bait. Right, that covers the bait. Let's plumb up. Can I just make a point about the plummet actually? Rather different than the ones you buy. All this is a piece of wrap round lead with a sponge in. Now the reason for this, I just tip the hook there into the sponge, like so. The thing about this is, while I'm plumbing up, if I get stuck with the plummet and I pull for a break, 90% of the time the hook will rip out of the sponge and we don't lose our tattle. It's a good point that actually. Now that's about 4 metres to hand there. And that is in fact just off the bottom. Now it's only where secondary attack is this really. And I'm not going to bother getting it absolutely perfect. In fact, some people maul about with plummets for so long, I'm sure that every fish in the peg just disappears. You want to make plumbing simple, make it quick. Now we'll plumb the other line. Now I would imagine it's going to be something like 4.5 stroke 5 foot deep on that 2/3 line. I've already set this accordingly. In fact, if I could think back to when I actually fished here that other July, I'd know for certain, wouldn't I? Look around, we're losing pieces of pole here, we are. Now what we'll do here is we'll drop it right in the middle where no danger, it's going to be the deepest. And that, remember, it's not that bad, is it? That is more or less the depth. So let's just work it out. Don't want to take too long over this, but I've still got to get it right. This is the important line. What I'm going to do is find out how far that depth will last. Now you'll notice it's just starting to come up. And that's it. So now I've found the crook of that deep water. That is where the depth starts to come back up again. And it's in the crook of that peg we're going to fish. Right, we're going to start off with the bloodworm. On the near side, we know how deep it is now. We're just going to cast in to get it absolutely right. That is that. And quite simply just put in a couple of little balls of jokers. You'll notice that when I feed this float, I'm going to try and feed it just this side of it, because the depth will continue to be going, and whatever doesn't get eaten, if you like, I want it to find its way to the deeper water. If I feed too far, I feel as though I'm doing it wrong. So I'll just put a couple of those in there. Then we'll pull this out. And we'll feed the far line. Right, what I'm going to do here in fact is this. I'm just going to put one little cup of joker on that caster line. I feel that the joker just activates the fish and just gets them cracking that little bit sooner than if I was just feeding casters alone. I mean, there are good anglers that come on this canal and just simply fish caster on its own, and they do quite well. But I mean, I feel as though this is the best way, so this is the way I'm going to do it. It's just 1/2 cup of joker on that caster line. And the cup, although we can throw it, let's get it banged on, should we? It's a great method, this, in the wind. In fact, there's been the odd occasion I've fed the middle of the canal instead of where I want, but anyway. Right. That's perfect. Just enough to get those fish activated, we hope. So we'll take that off. We'll just put a couple of pouch of casters, not pouch fulls, remember it is winter. There's about 15, perhaps 16 casters there. On more or less the same line. I'm not bothered about the fact that they spread out a little bit. I'm not going to say I did it on purpose, I'm just saying I'm not bothered about it. Now that's great. I would say there we probably I don't know, 25, perhaps 30 casters. Now I'm going to leave that and I'm going to start fishing this inside line. And hopefully we'll catch a little perch or two, perhaps even a big perch or two, who's to say. Right, while we're at this, let's show you how to hook a bloodworm. The one I want is that one there, on the end of my thumb. It's a beautiful looking bait, and I expect to catch a fish on it. So let's put it on the hook, shall we? Straight through its head, making as least mess as possible. That's there. And that is absolutely perfect. In fact, I could eat that myself. There. Right, let's see how we go. All the time we've got to remember that this isn't the main peg. The main peg is, of course, across there. I mean, all we're doing now is waiting for the bigger fish, hopefully, to settle on those casters and that bit of joker that we put in. And it'll take quarter of an hour, 20 minutes to get that peg established. So we can grab an ounce or two on the near side, all well and good. And you never know, you could get an odd bonus. So let's just see how we go. Actually, that float's holding up perfectly. Just keep flicking the end. That actually was a bite. And I am afraid, like an idiot, missed it. Now, the one thing we always do when we're bloodworm fishing, if you miss a bite on a bloodworm, always change your bait. The number of times I see people, they'll miss a bite and go straight back in again. And it's false economy, is that? They think they're being fast, but they're not. The odds are, if you've missed a bite on a bloodworm, you'll miss the next bite too if you don't change it. So let's make sure we do it properly. There we go. You'll notice that when I cast in on this waggler, I draw the pole back. and that's to sink the line, of course. There we go, a little perch. Not bad, second chuck. It just could be one or two of those there, actually. Anyway, let's get it in on the hook and put it in the net. Right, I'll tell you what we're going to do now. We'll just stick another bloodworm on. Do you know, when there's small perch about like that, there's usually a few of them. And actually, what you want actually is a small bloodworm. Now that might be too big, but anyway, we'll give it a go. And let's put a caster or two in across there. Don't forget that is still the main peg. Just let them settle. Just keep moving that float. Perch love a moving bait. Now then, that looks, there we go. There we go, another one. It must be solid. Even Mark Downs are catching me. Right, another bloodworm on. Get it absolutely perfect, that's it. And back in we go. I'll tell you what, we'll just put a couple more jokers in there actually. It looks like there's one or two fish here. Notice I'm feeding it short all the time. You never know, there might be a roach or two as well to follow, who's to say. In fact, to win a match on this canal in winter time, you need roach, really. Although lately it hasn't been fishing as well as what it can do. But usually 3 or 4 decent roach on the caster and say a dozen of these perch on the bloodworm, and you have a couple of pounds, and that's been enough lately actually. Of course, summertime it's totally different. That's when there's always bream present, and like I said, the last time I fished this particular peg I had nearly £10. Don't really think that's going to happen today. Well, you know, we bumped that one actually. But always remember, change that bloodworm. I'm trying to look for one now actually, it's not too big. There we go. You know, it's so easy to see the float when the sun's on it, and the sun just disappears for a minute or two and it becomes quite difficult. Just keep moving the tip. So what we'll do, we'll just shallow up a little bit actually. Just an inch or two. Right. They're not a bottom feeder, a perch really. They're a hunter, big eyes, looking up all the time, a little like a pike. And sometimes you can get a better perch in mid-water. When I say that, sort of 4, 5, 6 inches off the bottom. Let's just see how we go here. So what, a few more jokers wouldn't go amiss, I don't think. Once again, we'll feed it short. Just 1 or 2 more as well. Just a bit further than that. There we go. Now this feels a little better. Yes. Go on then, we'll pretend it's a match and we'll net it. Lovely. A perch once again. There we go. 2.5 ounce, something like that. Absolutely brilliant. Beautiful fish. Get it in the net. Right, we'll keep going on this line. Actually, just put my hook slightly out, did that one, but be okay now. Another bloodworm on, keep the depth the same, and then again. Tell you what, there are some trains going past, isn't there? I think trains are beating me about 5 to 3 at the minute. There we go. Another perch. Beautiful. There we go. Look at him. Got to be careful with them, haven't you? Lovely. Oops. You see, trying to show it the camera. Let's get it in the net. Okay, things aren't going so badly, really. In fact, carry on like this for a couple of hours, we'd have won last Sunday's match. Mind you, there's a difference between pleasure fishing and match fishing, and always has been. So another bloodworm on. Right. Always remember, this is not the main peg. That's the main thing across there, and that's the one I hope to catch a better fishy to later on. Move the float. Just keep that bait moving all the time. That looks like yes. There you go, a roach. Unbelievable. Lovely, isn't it? Lovely fish. Luke. Now, if we're catching roach on this bloodworm line, I've got to be thinking there's 1 or 2 of the big ones on that outside line. So what I'm going to do in a second, we're going to put another bloodworm on. We're going to chuck out back on this and just introduce a few more casters. And it won't be long now before we're on the long pole. Because believe me, seldom can you win matches on these little fish on the inside. So let's just get that back out. And just about a dozen casters. Beautiful. Okay, we'll give this now about 5 or 10 minutes and we're out there. Hopefully to catch some bigger fish. You know, I can remember a funny tale actually around here because it was a winter league this about 2 years ago. Through the bridge there and through the next length, and I was next pegged to Vinnie Smith. And 5 minutes before the all-in, he'd gone. And he'd simply straight in, under the lot. He'd come out like a Polaris. And he won his section. That's unbelievable, isn't it? Winter, freezing cold. What he doesn't know is, honestly, the rest of us were laughing that much we couldn't catch anything. Anyway, that's by and by. There we go, another one. Back to the perch. Peas out of a pod, aren't they? Beautiful little fish. Right, get it in the keep net. Now, we're only going to have a couple more chucks really on this line now because I really do feel as though the other one is worth a bit of attention. And as I say, we're not playing around catching little fish all day. Although there are times in fishing matches when catching little fish all day can be quite a luxury. So in we go. We'll just put another half dozen or so casters in. Not that many, just half a dozen. Now that should be ready in a little while for having a go on. Just keep moving this float, we must not forget that. Although I do get the impression this peg might be dying a bit of a death. It's only supposed to last quarter of an hour, 20 minutes, that's all. Oh, they're getting smaller now, look at that. Not much bigger than a stittleback really, is it? Mind you, they all count. Let's get it in the net. You know, that reminds me actually, it's not that many years ago, whereas all you would have caught here was sticklebacks. I mean, they were terribly polluted, these inner city canals, and it's amazing really just how good they are now by comparison. Marvellous fisheries really. In fact, I don't know of anything to beat this particular one. Anyway, let's have a go on that caster peg now. I'm sure there must be something waiting for us. Take the plummet off first. We're not going to catch a right lot with that on, are we? There we go. Now you see we're using a 22's hook, and that's why we're going to put a floating caster on. And between the two of them, they should be just about right. We're going to bury the hook in the caster actually, because we don't want it to show. Right then. Now this first chuck is always the important one. If you're on it, it will go more or less straight away. Now that, my word, now that did look like a bite. Let's have a look at it. Now you'll notice here just how easy it is to put the pole back actually, but it's one thing that you've really got to keep your eye on. Just let's have a look at this caster first. Oh my word, yes. Now then, look at that. Don't show Dick Clegg, please. Right, we'll get another caster on. In fact, let me show you exactly how to put one on. There is a thick end and a thin end, I mean a head and a tail, as everybody knows, so we insert the point of the hook in the thick end like that. We turn it round and we put it in with the thumbnail. Now that renders the hook invisible, which is what we're looking for, of course, to fool these fish. So let's get out there again and see if we can get a bite, or another bite should I say. Right. You'll notice actually that I'm shipping the pole back directly behind me. And you've got to be careful really. I mean, there's many users of canal towpaths. I mean, you get the odd jogger and cyclists and different things. And we must always appreciate that they've as much right to be here as we have. And at the same time, you don't want 500 quid's worth of pole stood on, do you? So always keep your eyes out at the back of you for other towpath users. Now then, that looks like one. Now then, what have we here, I wonder? Not very big, I'm afraid. Aye, a perch. Now usually when you get a perch in here on caster, it is rather bigger than that one. But nevertheless, they all count. There we go. 2.5 ounce, something like that. Not so big really. Perhaps all we can hope for is a couple of big perch. I mean, usually your first bite's a roach if there's any there. Let's get out there again. I think I'm just about beating the trains now. Now another interesting point you'll notice, I hold my pole like that, with the elbow straight, the hand there, as so. And that is just as a guide really, but the striking is always done with that, you know, a point of interest. Now there are some people of course that prefer to hold it like that. Now there's a good reason why I don't. It's simple, because by holding it like that I immediately gain about 12 or 15 inches of pole, and I might as well have them really, mightn't I? So always hold it in this manner. You notice it's starting to rain a little bit now as well. These clouds are coming over, and then the sun's coming out, and then it's cloudy. We don't know where we are today, we don't. I just hope these fish realise where they are. There we go. No, hang on a minute. Yes. Now then, this is better. Now, it could be a roach, I must be honest. Let's have a look. Look at this weather now, eh? Notice I always tuck the pole under the net there. A perch, and a nice one at that. I'll certainly net this rascal. Come on. There we go. Look at this. A beautiful fish. Now look at him. Or her as it is actually, look. Spawning, would you believe? Just shows how prolific these waters are, doesn't it? And it makes a mockery of the so-called close season in a way. I mean, here we are, middle of February, and we have a perch ready for spawning. What a beautiful fish. Gorgeous. Put it in the net. And put another caster on. Now I'm not going to put any more casters in out there actually just at the moment, because I think, considering the fact that there's no roach showing, I mean you don't usually get a lot of these perch together. I'm just going to continue fishing on what we've already put in and see if we can get another. In fact, this weather, honestly, it's squalls and gusts and clouds and hailstones, and then the sun's out. I can't believe it. Just wait for him to settle. Now, I'm not so sure about that. I think actually that was the wind. Do you know, it's ever so difficult sometimes looking at a tiny bristle when it's all blowing up. Look at that, just dragged it off the hook a little bit, Luke. Can you see that? Untouched. I would say that's a small roach, probably ounce and a half. Anyway. We missed it, that's the main thing, isn't it? I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll try a light one. Now sometimes you can put a white caster on and really pick up a bonus. Right. You know, you'll notice all the time I'm fishing there's quite a bit of movement in this pole actually. And they tell me in the shops that people come in and if they're not as stiff as a board, they don't want to know. Well honestly, I'd hate to have a pole that was too stiff. I'd much prefer one that has that little bit of end action, as you can see, and works much better for me anyway. That's why I still start getting this one back. Now that is a bite. Oh, Now this is better, look at this. You notice that elastic, it's not coming out that much with air again, it's not supposed to do, but the tip's going round and it's acting as a perfect shock absorber. Just look. Now then. You know, I do believe it's another perch, to be quite honest. I'll tell you something, there's a lot of activity knocking about round here. I think the local factory must have chucked out or something. Anyway, let us concentrate on catching this, should we? Yes, a perch indeed. Look at this. Come on, sunshine. There we go. Gorgeous. A little bigger than the last one, or the last one but two, or whatever it was. Just look at that. And bloated, full of spawn again. Crikey, there's going to be a perch explosion on this canal in the next year or two. If they're all like this. A gorgeous fish. 9-10 ounce, I would have thought. Look at that. Beautiful. Been caught before as well, I noticed. Anyway, let's get her in the net. Well, this is unbelievable, really, catching these perch on caster. I mean, I know they get the odd big one on here, they always have done. But I mean, we've had two now, and hardly any roach, or no roach at all on the caster. Anyway, there's time yet. Do you know, I can remember years ago, actually, when I used to fish my own canal, the Lancaster Canal especially, but I'm certain the same applied here. That to get this sort of good fishing, really good fishing, you had to go out, I don't know what that was then, but you had to go out into the country to get the best of it. It doesn't seem to apply anymore, that actually. It seems to me that this inner city fishing is far better now. I mean, the Leeds-Liverpool Canal is far better towards Liverpool and Leeds. The Lancaster Canal is certainly at its best round Preston. And it just seems to me that perhaps things have changed around, and the reason could well be, I mean, the stuff the farmers are putting on the fields, for example, that obviously get washed into the canals. Meanwhile, there's hailstones bouncing off my nose, and I'm feeling rather uncomfortable. But you see the point that I'm trying to make? Oh, now then. It's bound to be another perch. I don't know why I know that. It's just because we haven't had a roach yet. Why should we start now? I must have a peg full of spawning perch. Yeah, here we go. Look at this. If I could have got these last Sunday, I'd have won it. Lovely. Yep, 5 or 6 ounce. Beautiful. Absolutely. There we go. And now, would you believe it stopped hailstone and it's starting to rain. What's going to happen next? I'll tell you what, that wind's getting cold. It is. That's a bite. Do you know something? Where I'm shaping today. Let's get back out there. Must have been a small fish actually. Let's put a sinker on and let it fall down a little bit differently. One thing about match fishing actually, you've got to keep trying different things. I mean, I got the impression that was a small fish. So it's just something a bit different, and you never know, do you? Well, I'll tell you what, the light's certainly fading now, and it's getting cold too. And we've certainly had all the elements during the course of today. I think actually we'll just try and get another one and we'll call it a day. Man, you haven't said that, I have to get a bite first. Hang on a minute, there we go. Oh well, this isn't so big. Here we go. Well, my word, would you believe it? A perch. You know, that must be the smallest perch I have ever caught on caster in my life. Incredible. Well, I think it's time to call it a day, actually. I won't be able to see me float if I carry on much longer. So we'll put it in the net. And in fact, I'll tell you what, let's have a look at and see what we've caught. Right, let's have a look at what we've got. Now then. Well, I suppose it's not so bad really. I guess we'll have what? 3.5 pounds. All perch by the odd 3 or 4 roach. Yeah, not so bad at all. Let's just take a step and get them back where they belong. Yeah, not a bad catch really, thoroughly enjoyed it. Okay. Well, that wasn't bad, was it? We caught a few fish. It was just a shame that we didn't get that odd bigger roach or two that we were really looking for. But there again, with 3.5, 4 pounder perch, and on a winter's day, you can't really beat that. I think this inner city fishing is really coming on, and British Waterways are doing an excellent job in preserving it the way that they are. Anyway, as you can see, the weather's getting absolutely diabolical, and I'm going to get going before the rush hour starts.